Welcome everybody to this summit. And as you will know, we are recording all of this. So if by any chance you need to depart, or if you can't find your way back out of the loo, you can watch the recording later. This summit was deliberately called Leadership WTAF, for what the actual, for goodness sake, because we wanted this to be a slightly challenging look at what leadership and some of its various components are actually all about. So I'm Nigel Girling, for those that don't know me, along with all of my letters and my woodcutter's badge and 50 yards breaststroke certificate. I'm going to be chairing proceedings, which means I'm going to be interfering from time to time and stopping people from saying things so I can ask them difficult questions, including some of yours if they appear. If we get a lot, which we might, we won't be able to cover them all, so we'll pick those that we think are going to be of most general interest. We also have a few up our sleeves of questions, or at least I do anyway, of questions that I want to challenge my colleagues with. Starter for 10 before we get to that bit. 2 starters for 10 actually. First, here is everybody. So we have Dr. Phil James, former CEO of the Institute of Leadership and Management. We have Juliet Oldman Metcalf, who's a chartered psychologist. We have Kevin Hard, whose fault this all is. We have Dr. Caroline Yeoman, who's also a psychologist and is particularly a well-being and mental health specialist. Dr. Paul Pritchard, whose background is in all kinds of things, but now sustainability is particularly an area of interest. We have Dr. Sarah Gordon, who does risky things. I'm reliably informed that's not a hobby, it's actually a job. But we then have Anthony Taylor, who's going to be talking about governance. We have Cassandra Andrews, who's going to be talking about issues around motivation. And we have me, who's not going to be talking about anything in particular, apart from being annoying and interrupting people. That's what I do best. So let me give you my first thought here. It won't have escaped your attention in the last 9 months, unless you've been living under a rock, that things have got a bit stormy. They're going to get stormier still. It looks like we may well come out of the EU without a deal. It looks as though we may be some months away from a vaccine working, although there is clearly hope. So I wanted to just share this with you, something that some of you may have come across before, a quote from Louise May Alcott. I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning to sail my ship. I think it's more important than ever that we are competent at sailing through these storms. If you look at those people in the picture on the right, they're in what I would see as great peril, and yet they're all calm and doing their jobs because they trust in their leader, because they trust in knowing what they're doing. I think that's an important backdrop for all of us in everything that we're dealing with. And we'll be saying some more about that from a number of angles today. Okay, here's my first starter. I've been working with leaders for, well, I think it's probably about 1,000 years now, a very long time. And one of the things I've discovered from a lot of them is that the really good ones don't care about this stuff, and the really bad ones do. The hierarchy, tribes, and job titles, the idea of people being more important than somebody else because they're higher up an imaginary organizational chart. The idea of people clubbing together into little tribes that hate every other tribe, which could be a team or a department or a shift or whatever it might be. And the idea of people talking to each other as if they are job titles. I am the director of something or other, you are the manager of something, then I talk to you as that, as if they've never existed in any other field but in that job. These are all things that they were never enough, but we're going to find out just how not enough they are in this next year. We can't afford as leaders to be caught up in all of this. People need and expect more than this from us. So I do like that little arrow, it's cool, isn't it? Oh, no, I like the anime. I'm going to do that one again because I really like that one. Here we go. Oh, that's so good. You get to my age, that's the most fun you can have, is PowerPoint animations. I think that as leaders, there are 3 things that we've got to enable, and we need to be doing it now. The first and most obvious is hope. It's easy to get caught up in survival and revenue and all kinds of issues that businesses of all sorts have, organizations of all sorts have. But we have to remember what people have been through, including ourselves. What we need more than anything else is hope. Hope is what gives people their energy and their drive and their engagement and their discretionary effort. Several of my colleagues are going to pick up on some of these threads as we go through this today. So hope is our primary, I think, objective as leaders, is to enable that to happen for everybody. The vaccine has been great help in that because it's given people hope that this may not go on forever. We might come out the other side, but we need more than that. We need to make sure that people understand purpose. And purpose is not increasing market share by 1.3%. I get very aerated when I have conversations with boards where they tell me that their vision or their purpose is something to do with money. If I was allowed to shoot them, I would, because that's not what we're about. I remember asking at a conference last year, sometime, several hundred CEOs and leaders, what's the purpose of a business? And almost universally, what I got back was to make returns for shareholders. That is not the purpose of a business. The purpose of an organization is to provide goods and services that people want and for which they're prepared to pay or for which they are happy. If you do that, money happens, but it's obliquity. The money happening is a byproduct of doing good work. People need to know that they're about more than just making some money for people who they probably think have already got too much. So we need people to have a different sort of purpose. We want a purpose that actually matters. Because if we can do that, we've got a chance of unleashing some passion. And passion is where our achievement comes from. I and others, Juliet included, have been involved in the engagement task force for what seems like a century. And we've been talking about the whole issue of engagement and unleashing discretionary effort. These three things are the things that will do it. Right? If we can create hope for people of a better day, if we can create a sense of purpose and a passion for what they're trying to do, we've got a chance. Just to kind of elaborate on that a bit more, we have a number of things to think about here. This brighter future is important. It's quite hard for people to see that at the moment, and we've got to find a way. They need to believe that they belong to something that does work that matters. A friend of mine works in a warehouse because she's actually a CEO but can't get a job at the moment. So she's working in a warehouse. And she is finding it very difficult to engage with the organization because they don't seem to do anything that anyone really cares about. Yeah, they're doing stuff that makes money, but does it actually matter in the greater scheme of things? We need to find what it is that matters about what we do. There should be something in there somewhere. If you're an Amazon delivery driver, you're doing work that actually matters. I've survived through Amazon Prime for the last few months. It keeps me alive here over in the Norfolk coast. It's the only type of shopping I can do. And finally, making a real difference is where passion comes from. A real discernible difference. You've got to be able to see the impact of the work you do on people you care about. Taking that on a bit. It's all very well to say that, I can say this stuff and I write about it and talk about it, speak about it at conferences all the time, but it's the how that matters. A few things here. Creating hope comes from having clarity of vision. It comes from having a direction of travel. And by that, I mean, we can't give people clear objectives for what's going to happen next year because we've got no idea. And anyone who thinks they do is probably delusional. But to have a sense of direction of where we're going for the next 5 or 10 years, that we can do. We can paint a vague picture of the road and direction of travel. It matters so much to people that they feel they're getting better and going upwards. You see that. I am a serial yo-yo dieter. I've been probably every weight between 6 pounds 12 ounces and 22 stone in the last 60 odd years of my life. I always know that no matter what weight I actually am, I feel massively better if I'm losing weight than I do if I'm putting it on. If I'm losing weight at 18 stone, I feel better than I do when I'm putting it on at 14, because the direction of travel is hopeful and positive. Circling the wagons, getting people together to feel like they're part of something, in smaller groups maybe, or in team leaders and people like that, without tribes and without hierarchies, but as together, as working on this together. I don't know why I bothered to put a little asterisk in there, because I'm going to call them arseholes. I may as well have just said it. But one of the things I think that is particularly important, and I'll come back to it towards the end of today, is that we can't afford to have arseholes in our organisation. People who are unpleasant, who are toxic, who are actively disengaging. And we have lots of them in organisations, hopefully not in any of yours, but they're everywhere. There are people who upset everybody else, who make people feel worse. We can't have that. This year is the year we've got to deal with it. Those of you who've seen Bob Sutton's No Arsehole Rule book, and if you haven't, where have you been? Because you should have. It's brilliant, and it talks about not tolerating this for the greater good. Because I am a bit of an outspoken git myself, I often find myself being the one that has to fix it in organisations, because I will. But I think we have a responsibility as leaders to deal with that stuff. We all need to have a voice. Our purpose can't be numbers, as I mentioned. It needs to be a picture, a vision of what a better day would look like for us and our stakeholders, our key stakeholders. And that isn't just shareholders or customers even, it's everybody that has a stake in what we do, the wider community, their families. There's all kinds of people that are stakeholders. And we need some kind of common sense idea of what that journey is going to look like. These are simple things. There's no rocket science here. These are simple things, but they're things that often organizations haven't done. And then finally, some of you will know, I work out of the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst with my colleagues. And one of the things that somebody said to me once, which really struck a watch, they actually said, well, soldiers don't die for their country, they die for their friends. And I think that's a significant thought for us, that it's no good as expecting people to fight for their organization in a bigger organization, because why would they? But they will do it for each other. They will do it for the people they identify with and care about. And you just need to make sure they're the right people. So, summing up, we have to recognize this, that hiding behind anything, whether it's a team, tribe name, or a job title, or a position in a hierarchy, isn't going to do it. We are literally, absolutely all in this together. Therefore, we have to lead people, actually lead people, not direct them or manage them, but lead them, to take them somewhere, to take them somewhere better, to some sunlit uplands somewhere. So, I'm going to hand over now to the first of my learned colleagues, who's going to be talking us through some of these issues. And Phil obviously has huge amounts of experience and a PhD in the subject, and also used to lead the organization that is one of the key organizations in this field. And also he's disappeared off his screen, which is kind of worrying. But so I'm about to hand over to him. But I hope you'll get some interesting insights from all of my colleagues this afternoon. And please do start getting those questions in.